cert, and I'm here to tell you today that you can. So I'll tell you a little bit about our offerings. We have unclass offering. General Lynn said 56,000 endpoints, right? Actually, his number's just a tiny bit off because we've had tremendous growth in the last 6 months, right? So we're now up to about 70,000, and sometimes we peak an additional 10,000 users a month. Now, most people said, hey, what's going on here, right? So the services are being more mature, and whole commands are deciding to not run their own mobility programs, but come to the DoD mobility program, PMO, to get their services. Classified secret, right? We've had the handset, right? I have it here in my pocket, right? This is the maturation of what was SMEPED, right? But here I have a commercial device that is secured enough to process classified voice and data. And we've actually started our pilot with tablets to provide basically the same thing in a bigger form factor. And classified TS, right? We are running a classified TS voice-only collateral pilot, right? I got my PM here, Alex Hornberger. He's here smiling with me, right? A tremendous capability for DoD leaders out here. So I'm going to pass it on to Mark, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing here in mobility.
Good, thanks. So I don't know if, it is on. The light's not on, so I thought it wasn't working. Good morning. So I'm Mark Long. I'm the branch chief for systems engineering for DoD Mobility. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of pick up where Jake left off and tell you a little bit more detail about each of our offerings from the program. So on the DMUC side, which is our unclass offering, it's defense, mobile, unclassified capability. As Jake mentioned, we have towards 70 or 75,000 devices provisioned currently with that offering. So there's a lot of things that are associated with that. So if you're interested, if your organization's interested in a DMUC offering, they can sign up through Storefront, through DISA Mill site, and through the MPE portion. And there's the piece that DISA offers is the managed piece of that. And that's the mobile device management piece. So organizations have a list of devices that they can pick from. We have a user corner that lists everything out there. And with that, most popular are the Samsung and iOS devices, especially the iOS side. It's about 92% of the users that choose to go with our service select an iOS device to use. So, like I mentioned, there's a whole list of devices, not only phones, but tablets as well. With that, we have approved apps. There's an app vetting process, which Neil will tell you about in a moment. But we have currently about 300 approved apps. We've made a lot of progress on the app vetting process, and it's starting to actually pick up a lot of momentum. More and more apps are being approved. There's app vetting, which Jake mentioned a little bit about too, that individuals from organizations that have a mission need for an app or have developed an app can actually vet the app through our office. One of the things that people are really interested and excited about with DoD, our unclassified offering, is purebred, so Derive Credentials. And that's what Brandon's going to talk about today. But really, we finally have an elegant solution to have Derive Credentials on our DMUC device, and that is going to open up a lot of opportunity for access to information.
Yeah. So Mark, your team has also worked to get government-trusted Wi-Fi in a couple of locations. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So what we've done is we started off in the DISA headquarters building at Fort Meade. We coordinated with the network administrators that are responsible for the government-trusted unclassified Wi-Fi there in the facility, and configured both sides, the network side and also the management side, the authentication side for our mobile device management. And what happens now, without going into great detail, is you walk into the building with your DMUC device and it automatically connects to our Wi-Fi network in the building. So we took that as the pilot, and we standardized the configurations and used that same standard configuration for the Pentagon. So the JSP folks followed that, and we kind of refined the process a little bit. And now you walk into the Pentagon with a DMUC device, and it automatically connects to government-trusted Wi-Fi there. That has since propagated to more and more locations. So the Air Force has adopted it. We get calls all the time just to validate, how to do it. But all the information is posted on the user corner. So it's pretty standardized, and it's pretty easy to implement. I guess some of the concerns people have when they're doing that is getting permission. They want to know, all right, how did you get approval to connect your government device to the trusted Wi-Fi? Because they want to do the same thing. So what we've done is we've shared some of that information as well.
Yep. And just for clarification, when we say government trusted Wi-Fi, right, we're saying the NIPRNet, right? So none of these mobility devices for a future have a native Cat5 cable, right? So this is a way to take a mobility device into a facility and be connected to NIPRNet, right? With just configurations. We've done it with two of the leading Wi-Fi infrastructure service providers, and through configurations, right, we are seeking others that have buildings. So for those of you who are DoD or support DoD, if that building has a Wi-Fi connection that connects to NIPR or plans to have one, tell them to come see us, right? We can tell them how to get their DMUC devices connected to that network. So just to move on to Neil, can you tell us a little bit about some of the apps that's in our MAS, our mobile application store today on DMUC?
So we have a variety of apps in our app store. In terms of both apps that do mission-related activities that can process FOUO information, PII, those types of things, as well as commercially available apps that are available on the Apple App Store or through our App Store on the Android side. We essentially what we do, Jake, is we take applications, requests for vetting of those applications. Those come in through our user corner. So we do have a site where mission partners can go to request that we vet and approve those apps. Once that enters the queue, we have a team of folks that vet those apps. Depending on what type of information the app processes, determines how much, how closely we have to look at the app. And then from there, we have a scoring system in place. And if the app passes, we can, field it in pretty short order. And if it doesn't, or if it meets a certain criteria or a certain score, then we send it up for the authorizing official to either approve or disapprove. So we've been at this for quite a while. I think we've made great strides over the past 6 months because the bottom line is it's very time intensive to vet the apps. It takes a long time. I think we vetted about 60 of them last month, and that's up from about 10 a few months ago. So I think we're getting better. We're starting to move. And we're looking at some very interesting solutions with mobile threat detection and maybe some of our other partners that are here today in the building to potentially really open the floodgates and increase the number of apps that we can put out there. So just a little bit about what I do, if you don't mind. So I'm the chief of the Mobility Capabilities branch. So big fancy title, but basically what it means is all of the different capabilities or areas that bolt on to our 3 core services, TS, secret, and unclassified, all of those things belong to me. So everything from the applications that I just mentioned, electronic flight bags, so a big initiative with the Air Force. Instead of carrying big bags of books and manuals, you get all the information onto a tablet. Mobile threat detection is our newest one, and our mobile threat detection lead is there, Cynthia. So we're looking at implementing something that can protect the end user device. The whole product support piece, so when folks have questions, ordering process, all those different things, that's mine. Purebred implementation, which is the PKI piece that Brandon will talk a little bit more about pretty soon, but the implementation of Purebred into DMUC falls under my branch as well. And then finally, our newest thing is a classified virtual desktop initiative pilot on the secret tablet that Jake was talking about a while ago. So we're really excited about that. and hope to put out the first few instances of that over the next 90 days.
So Brandon, in 2005, I had a mobile device and a sled, and I was able to use my CAC card in order to encrypt and decrypt messages, right? Email messages, encrypted email messages, include to sign them. So tell me how, from a DMUC perspective, how is Purebred better than that?
Yeah, so again, this is a quick little history background on this. So as Jake mentioned, we kind of started off with sleds that allowed CACs and a special sled to pair with a mobile device and a special app for that. So from a DMUC perspective, we initially had a solution for this. A lot of these are very niche solutions, so that product actually went end of life, kind of to the surprise of all of us. So we actually had a capability gap on this for quite a while with DMUC. So part of the gap of that was there was some analysis done that we were able to see that iOS had some native Apple iOS had some native functionality to be able to sideload credentials on the devices. And so we named this the soft cert pilot for Apple iOS, basically. So it was basically a 45 minutes to a couple hour process that involved 1 to 3 various people, including PKI RAs and a mobility expert with a MacBook workstation to be able to sideload these credentials on Apple iOS devices. And so a handful of VIPs and other folks had this capability for a couple of years while we continued to work an automated solution for this. And so that automated solution is Purebred. And so what Purebred is composed of is a web application that's hosted within the DoD PKI enclave, and then a registration app for the corresponding mobile devices that it supports. So the platforms we support are Apple iOS, Android, Windows Universal Platform, and then legacy BlackBerry devices. So additionally, so Purebred issues Derive Credentials. So Derive Credentials Derive Credentials are a process to derive new ID and signing credentials onto your mobile device by using the trust we already have in the CAC that is issued to the majority of the workforce. So what this allows us to do is, in a very rapid fashion, basically a 5-minute process with a trusted agent and the mobile device either in the user's hand or the agent's hand to do this enrollment process in basically a 5-minute period, and the user is ready to go. And so what that allows the user to do then is have a CAC equivalent credential on their mobile device that allows them to do sign encrypted email. They can access CAC enabled websites through either the native browser or through third-party products. So that's really the big deal is taking this process that a lot of folks really enjoy that had the capability with soft certs and really bringing that to the masses in a very scalable way.
So the bottom line, because there's been a lot of confusion surrounding this too on, is it available? Can I do this, right? It's been available since December. It's on both the platforms that we support today. What's the so what? Before, as Brandon said, it required touch labor, right? So we had to limit to VIPs, right? What we term VIPs. Select those 6s and GS15s and above, right? Today it's for every user. 5-minute process, no touch labor required. We did have a gentleman here ready to demonstrate that today, right? I actually had to send him down to the Pentagon, not because he had to touch labor, but for VIPs. There is a workflow process where the customer initiates the request, right, for the cert. And the cert is then sent to them over the air. So, Brandon, can you tell us, what does this mean for application developers? What does Purebred give an application, a mobile, whether through the browser or native app application developer?
Yep, so from our perspective, our fundamentals were to be able to support the native applications as well as third-party. Some particular platforms do throw some challenges in how we do that. So we do have very generic solutions on all the platforms to do that. So to kind of walk through those quickly, so for iOS, we have we utilize Apple's native API called the Document Provider Extension, which basically allows you to take a copy of those keys into your particular app's environment and then install those into that application's slice of their keychain. So from there, you can import those into that keychain and then leverage those keys for any kind of signing or encryption operations you may be doing in your application. For Android, we import them into the native Android keychain, so you can use Android keychain APIs that are freely available from Google. On Microsoft, it is available just like the smart cards of today are through CAPI. Our technology leverages on Surface Pro devices the virtual smart card functionality with devices that contain TPMs.
So we have Purebred. You can use it to authenticate with third-party applications. Neil, you talked a little bit about the standards for app vetting. Can you tell us more? What are they based on? What is this NIAP, and how does it match with commercial best practices for app development?
So we vet the apps according to the NIAP protection profile for software applications. We have a tool that we use which essentially dissects the app and applies against each one of those standards from the NIAP protection profile. I think the NIAP protection profiles are generally accepted across industry. I know that when we talk to app developers, nobody's ever surprised when we point them back to that document. And ultimately, I think that as we advise a lot of these vendors, we don't really find a lot of pushback coming back. So I think it's generally well accepted.
So examples of what the standards look like. You shouldn't use plain text passwords. If you're going to have a app-based database inside, it needs to be encrypted, right? You have to use SSL, and it has to work, right? These are some of the examples of the standards, right? So anyone doing any type of commercial development, they won't be surprised, right? These won't look like any type of special government rules or regulations, right? They're really commercial best practices. And recently, we actually had a customer where you were able to work up front with them to understand the NIAP protection profiles, which are actually, they're Googleable, right? If you Google NIAP protection profile for app development, you can actually find them. And can you just tell us about that good news story?
Yeah, so basically what we had was an entity in the Pentagon. I won't say exactly who, but we had an entity in the Pentagon that decided they wanted to develop an application for use out in the field by commanders or folks out in the wider world. And so essentially what the app does is it based on your geographic location and certain tags that you put in, it mines the data from social media platforms and brings it into one feed. So if you can imagine, you land in Somalia. Well, all of the people in Somalia, they're using social media and they're posting pictures. They're posting information about troop movements and about insurgent movements and things going on. So essentially what this does is it brings it in more or less like an intelligence feed, and it brings it all into one feed so that an operations center can process that information and use it in real time. So they contracted with an app developer. They approached us and said, hey, could you help us out? We want to make sure that we can get this app out. And so we thought, okay, this is a great example of an opportunity where we can get in early during the app development. Because generally what happens is our partners will develop the apps, they'll bring the app to us, and then we'll say, oh, wow, when we stack this up against the protection profile, there are all these major deficiencies, and you need to go back and fix it. But in this case, we were able to jump in early. So we had a couple of really long sessions with them along the way. I've got a couple of guys in the room smiling at me that were really involved in that. And so ultimately what happened is they delivered the app to us for vetting, and I'm happy to say that it scored 100 out of 100 the first time through. So we do welcome opportunities from our mission partners, Jake, to interface early and often. We carved that out. And we do have here today our new apps lead, which is Eugene. Raise your hand. So this is Eugene. And so any of those requests that, for folks developing those apps, please get with Eugene early and often so that he can talk to you about this and it can make it smoother on the backside as we try to deploy it out.
So applications, when we talk about applications, we're not just talking about unclass, right? There are many classified secret existing desktop websites or actually full applications on the Windows platform. So Mark's team is working on classified secret mobile VDI. Can you just tell us a little bit about what, well, Mark's team started it and Neil's team's picked it up,
Yeah.
so I'll let them both.
I'll let Mark talk.
Right. So this is kind of a little bit of a split effort. I think Neil's probably got the con now with this. But so the idea is initially, I guess to fill in some of the blanks here, on our classified offering, so DMCC, it has been just a phone, just voice with minimal data for a long time. And so what we've done recently is we've piloted a tablet effort, and the lead for the tablet pilot effort is Leticia, and she's here. Hi, Leticia. So from that, really what that did is it took the same capabilities that we had on our phone, really just minimal voice onto a tablet form factor. Now, that may not seem that exciting. However, if you are looking at data such as email or UVDS, having a tablet is a much better user experience for that. And then what Jake had just mentioned is we're taking that a step further. We're piloting a VDI solution, so the virtual desktop, and we're extending out a lot more capability to the tablet. And two good things about that. One, the capability is going to be increased tremendously over even what we've ever offered before on Secret. But the other piece is it continues to be an unclassified device. So there's no data at rest with that solution. Did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that really it's, I would just add that it's the manifestation, if you will, of bringing the device from just a thing that you pull information from to a thing that you can actually do work on.
Right.
And that's really going to be the beauty of it, because it'll have that Office suite and other applications that we can put in the background that don't have to actually reside on the device, and we can actually do work on the tablets versus just consuming information.
All right. Fill in some of the other pieces on
Sure.
DMUC. So just to kind of wrap up the unclassified discussion, there's a few other pieces I'd like to mention. So Neil had mentioned the mobile content management work that we've done with the Air Force for electronic flight bag. And that's really important, and it's coming a long way. So we're expecting to see that really fully operational probably within the next 6 to 8 months, maybe sooner than that. The idea with that, though, is not specifically just an Air Force EFB solution. There are many use cases for an enterprise storage solution, as you can imagine. So if you're using a tablet for doing some sort of work, we were talking the other day with the U.S. Coast Guard, and they have inspections that they do on vessels and ports. They have a lot of pubs and regs and instructions that they have to carry with them to do that, and this would be just another opportunity for them to take a tablet and reach back into the cloud and access all the information that they need, and all those documents could be updated in real time. So there's the mobile content management piece. Another piece is mobile threat detection. So mobile threat detection is, I think, going to really be a game changer for us as far as the app vetting piece. So currently we get apps in and we vet the apps, and they go through the process, and they're either approved or disapproved. And, you know, the utopia of this would eventually be, or could eventually be, that it's all approved unless the mobile threat detection system finds a problem with it, and then actions can be taken that way. And it's real-time monitoring, and there's a bunch of examples out there on the internet and industry if you care to look. I'd like to mention request fulfillment and a process or progress that we've made with that. With request fulfillment for both DMCC and DMUC, we've had some challenges in the past for that being a long process. We've really looked hard into the process and found areas for improvement. And we've increased that process to where at one point we were able to provision about 200 devices. Well, at one point it was per week or month, and now we're up to about 12,000. So in the same amount of time, we've really increased our throughput with that. So that's made a lot of progress there. So whenever you're ready, I can talk about DMCC. So
Sure, you can.
Yeah. All right, so I'll switch gears into our classified offering and talk a little bit about that. So we've already been talking about some of this in the tablet and the VDI solutions. but this is a pretty popular, it's pushing about 2,000 devices currently, and it's probably one of our most important offerings that we have. VIPs use this device for secure classified communications and a mobile environment, and it's coming a long way. We're really making progress to mature and improve this. There is certain data that's available now. Of course, you can access your SIPR email through the device in addition to the voice. There's UVDS, which is the unmanned aerial vehicle video feeds for some users. And moving forward with that, there's even more opportunity whenever we start doing the VDI piece. One of the most appealing things about this offering is the device is unclassified when turned off and it's not pinned in. So you can actually not have to worry about carrying around a classified piece of equipment with the secret mobile offering.
Mark's talking about this device here.
Yeah. So we do currently have to pair our DMCC with a hotspot. So that is a requirement by NSA, and there's certain reasons, security reasons, we have to do that. So all DMCC devices are paired with hotspot and the tablets as well. We do have limited coalition partner with this capability that's worked out. And there are also non-DoD users that have subscribed to our service as well. So it's really an opportunity for organizations to take advantage of what we offer as an enterprise offering there. Let me see. Anything else on the classified side?
No, I think we've well articulated that we actually have a platform. It's a service offering. It's sold to the services, the co-coms, the agencies, and in some limited cases, non-DoD feds, right? So we still have a ways to go, but where we really see the real innovation is adopting these platforms and transforming existing DoD applications to the mobile platforms and new mobile workflow, right? We had some discussions since we've been here, because many people have asked, well, you know, what apps do you need me to develop, Jake? And the answer is, I don't need you to develop any apps, right? I need you to go out and talk to my customers and get them to take their apps and port them to mobile, right? And a year ago, we would be able to tell you that we didn't have a way to authenticate, and we know that the DoD has moved away years ago from username and password, right? We have a way to authenticate with the PKI card today. We're using the commercially available leaders in the space, right? So you're using commercial practices, just commercial best practices. The NIAP standards are actually published, and if you read them, you know, any good software. If you have a software developer and they look at the NIAP protection profiles for mobile applications and they don't understand them, you probably want to go get a new vendor, right? Because this is pretty clear things, right? I'm by education, a software developer, right? So I can still read and understand these things. So we wanted to take this time to give you an opportunity to ask us any questions. We also have a good amount of my team here, right, just in here. So if you don't get a chance to ask your question, right, we will point you back actually to the leader in my team who's responsible for whatever areas you want to talk about.
Jake, I'd make one plug for the director's effort for assured identity.
Sure.
So that is, as you've kind of seen the theme throughout this event, the DISA director is very, very hot on identity in general. So part of the direction that DoD CIO had put out about kind of a CAC 2.0 future is an additional piece that we're working on from the PKI and assured identity teams. And really what that means is to be able to issue credentials to mobile devices that are equivalent of what hardware tokens and the trust that we've put in our smart card stock. So that's an additional piece of this, where right now we have all of this issuance infrastructure and an existing capability with mobile devices, and what we're really trying to do is raise that credential strength to be equivalent of the smart card, and then also do some advanced attestation to actually add additional value versus what we can do with smart cards today.
Should have said not this guy right here.
Good morning, gentlemen. Rob Anderson from IBM. I have two questions, if that's okay.
Shoot, Rob.
Okay. The first question is the application vetting for Neil. Can you tell us what platform you're using and how that process works, or if you can't, I understand.
So I really don't want to go into vendor-specific information here. I don't think that's a good idea, but we do have a tool that we use, but we're always open to new ideas.
Okay.
I think I would leave it at that.
Thanks, Neil. I didn't think you were going to answer that question. Mark, for you. Do you consider mobile content management and enterprise content management the same thing?
Well, I think that's, that is almost a trick question. It's very closely the same thing. So one is for mobile device use, and one is probably not for mobile device use. And I guess ultimately they could be used for both.
Well, that's why I wanted to define it. Enterprise content management is the ability to access data really from anywhere on any device.
Right.
The mobile device is the endpoint that facilitates that, but so is a laptop or a desktop.
Yeah. So I think that creates the whole system. So if you think about it in your personal life, and I won't mention vendor names either, but you may have an application that you have on a computer at home that you drop pictures or files or create folders and you share out with friends and things. And then on your mobile device, you can access the very same folder through the cloud. And so it's both. It really is. It's both. And it's like you said, an enterprise storage solution to me mirrors that. I mean, industry leads the way, and we're just trying to emulate that.
Check. All right.
So, Rob, you hit on something. In fact, I don't know if you remember, but we talked about this while you were out in AFRICOM last week, right? And it really resonates with what we're talking about. If someone were to partner or award a contract for content management, but it doesn't have a mobile interface, right, in 2017, then that's probably not the way you want to go, right?
That's correct.
You know, the idea is that the mobile device may not replace the desktop computer or laptop, right? But there's an expectation that you get access to that data, right, while mobile, while at home, and there are vendors that are working on FedRAMP and impact level X, right? And providing that capability to have the mobile app that actually PKI in, right? So not a special token, but the same one you use, right? The same identity that you use in order to authenticate to a desktop solution.
Yeah, I actually see enterprise content management as being the best step. Mobile content management kind of implies that the data is resident on the device or within some type of repository that the UEM is managing. So enterprise content management.
No, so I was just going to say this is a problem that we're wrestling with within the PMO. So mobile content management is in my branch. And we're looking at, and so if you look out at the landscape, essentially you have every organization is using a different enterprise content management solution. You know, DISA has a solution, the Air Force has one, the Army has one, and those particular solutions don't necessarily talk to each other.
Right.
And so in the DISA headquarter, and then to further complicate things, the DISA enterprise content management solution does not have a mobile app associated with it. So we could solve the DISA headquarters problem by creating an application for the DISA solution, but that doesn't help Air Force or Army or anybody else because we're all using different little pockets of enterprise content management.
So Utopia
is we all use the same thing.
So Utopia is you standardize on an ECM platform that gains access to any of the data that you have either within a cloud storage environment, a SharePoint portal, your enterprise file shares through Active Directory, network drives, blah, blah, blah. That's Utopia, right?
But what you don't want is you don't want a commander out in the field who creates some content on his mobile device and stores it up in the cloud, and then when he goes back to his office, he can't access it because the two systems don't talk to each other.
Yeah, I've lived that dream.
So we're wrestling with that problem, and so my spider sense started tingling when you asked the question.
We're going to scratch the term mobile content management. We're going to use enterprise content.
So actually, AFRICOM just submitted a requirement through the DISA Requirements Analysis Office process, and it did come to our program office for an enterprise storage solution. So not a mobile content management solution.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it's all going that direction.
Yeah, I love AFRICOM.
So do we.
Thanks, Rob.
Good morning. I have two questions as well. So the first question, I'll just follow along with the app vetting process here. There's a number of vendors that have apps they want to get approved through the DISA process, as you're aware. Many of them are sponsored by DoD customers, DISA customers. So let's say the vendor comes to you and says, okay, I've already gone through this process that you have. I've taken out the protection profile. I have a lab that's verified everything. Would that speed up your approval?
So two things I want to touch on to answer your question. The first answer is yes, that would speed up our approval, assuming that we had some confidence in that particular vendor's vetting, right? So, and all are not created equal. But in general, yes, that would speed things up. But then the second thing is that you touched on is we ask the vendors to please have your sponsor, your government sponsor, reach out to us. We're not in the business of just vetting apps and putting them out there for our users to use that don't have some type of a DoD sponsor behind them. And so I don't mean to sound harsh, but if we open the floodgates, we would just be inundated with potentially tons of apps that nobody really wants to use. So we're very careful about that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Hey, and let me just, one other key. So for those partners, the vetting service is included in the cost that we charge them for the device, right? So there's no additional. So if you're representing or you're supporting the Army, right, your Army sponsor can come and request for that app to be vetted.
And then we leave it to your sponsor, the Army, to rack and stack and prioritize all of the particular apps that they're asking us to vet. So.
I might add one final piece to that is one of the things we're doing as a program is we're coordinating with our mission partners with service level agreements to ensure that they actually are vetting to the same standards that we are. And once we get an agreement, then if an app is vetted and approved in that organization, that there'd be reciprocity.
Okay. My second question has to do with purebred. So there's at least one vendor out here who has a booth, an MDM product vendor, who claims that they're purebred capable or are able to support purebred. So as a DoD customer of DISA, how do we know that we can buy that product? How do we know whether that product meets the minimum requirements? I mean, what should we look for? Is there any kind of seal of approval that is actually a purebred certified product?
So I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to give Brandon. I'm going to just make one clarification. So purebred as a capability is not just for DMUC, right? It's the departments for DoD mobility programs. We're not the only mobility program, right? We'd like to be the only mobility program, right? We're going to put the other guys out of business. But until that happens, right, this purebred is for all mobility programs. And Brandon's going to tell you that vendors are working with the PKI program office to integrate into purebred into their offering.
Yep. So one of our fundamentals was to decouple device management from key management. And so that's really how our traditional workstations and laptops have always been, and we don't really have that as well as we'd like in the mobile space. And so today, basically for DMUC, the purebred registration app is deployed as another app from the DoD MAS, and the registration can happen, and that configures the native applications, and you have keys available to use. The tighter integration comes with each EMM might have their own ecosystem. So if they have an ecosystem of their own email app and their own documents management solution, using those keys within their ecosystem is where these integrations are starting to happen. And so most of the major EMMs out there that most folks are aware of are starting to look at this, and they're at various stages. So I would just advise basically if you have those type of questions to ask those vendors. But we do reach out to them proactively, as well as answer any questions. So from our perspective, we want to see every EMM and every application support this capability. So if you have questions, we're here. All of our information is available on iasc.disa.mil. So if you search for purebred on there, we have slick sheets and documentation for app developers, as well as our contact information. And we also have reference implementation for iOS on GitHub, so GitHub/purebred.
So Brandon, just to answer his question, though, there is no certification or seal of approval that a vendor could show to the government to say, yes, we are purebred.
No. So from our perspective, we can confirm whether we're working with certain EMMs, and we'll basically leave it to those vendors to make the statement. But if they're working with us, we're working towards a common goal there. So we really haven't seen any implementation that's really gone awry that we would really say no. So.
Great, thanks.
Any more questions? So I have I'd say a third of my team is here. So even outside the scope of mobile enablement and app development, any more questions?
Jake McDonald from Qualcomm. This may or may not fall in your all's wheelhouse, but I can appreciate you using VDI on a mobile device for classified. But when you get to the edge with the warfighter, there becomes a connectivity issue. Does that fall in your all's area to worry about, or is that Jesse's or whose?
Right. So in the context of mobile, yes, it is ours, right? Mm-hmm. So just had some recent discussions with our director on developing a tablet form factor mobile device that actually uses the DAR-CP from MACP, right? So mm-hmm. dual encryption from a device level. So it is on our roadmap, right? We're basically working in real time to provide something. So yes, we like the DAR-CP because it describes how when that device is off, you don't have to handle it as mm-hmm. a classified IS. So yes, we are working on solutions that would be an offering, right? So our solutions are offerings. We don't make them for the DISA enterprise, but to, in many cases, sell, right, as a service. So yes, sir, we are looking at that.
Thanks.
So any more questions? Anything? I have my whole team here.
What about a new device for DISA?
So I understand all the questions that came up about enterprise content management and so on. Should somebody in general be sponsoring the purebred, modifications associated with desktop applications like Office products that typically everybody in the Department of Defense uses, and we have licensing under the JELAs that would allow that?
Can you elaborate further?
Well, so should I get a Microsoft Word app cleared for use on the device? Should I get a Microsoft Outlook app that connects to DE rather than using a browser-based solution on the mobile device? And who should probably have that responsibility?
Yeah, so I'll let Brandon answer or actually Neil answer the part about vetting, right? But generally what we see is that a native app experience, right, is usually, greater and, easier and more functional than, say, HTML5.
Right.
We will vet anything that a authorized person actually brings to us, Brian. So bottom line, your answer is yes, right?
Well,
bring those to us.
And so, part of it comes down to, should somebody from the DEPS program, should somebody from the DE
yes.
program be sponsoring the vetting for an app that would allow us to do that?
Yeah, so you
and
kind of...
then DOS eventually.
So definitely, Brian. So you actually hit on something that's like really important. The DISA enterprise, not us as leaders who, sell offerings, but more so us who actually provide capability back to the services, right? So at the end of the day, we all have the same customers.
Right.
We used to use this term a couple years ago, DISA first, right? If your team's not mobile enabling apps, then why would the Army, or the services, right, and the COCOMs? So yes, and we want to set up with leaders like yourself to look at your whole portfolio, as we've discussed, right, on how we can mobile enable, right, whether it's from app or web, right. Interesting enough, most of if you're working with a commercial product that has been like kind of ported to be suitable for government use, they generally have a mobile interface already, right? And a good example of that, and I'll let Mark talk a little bit about what GCSS is actually doing, but we got UVDS on classified working last year on our mobile phone. The challenge was our existing phone did not have enough processor power, right? Phone works pretty good for VoIP traffic, right? Pretty skinny, low bandwidth, and low processor need, right? Web, mail, right? Low bandwidth, low processor need, right? Once you start running video feeds on what is a 4-year-old phone, right? We start running into issues. We just put out our tablet pilot. We got UVDS feeds working on that device, right? Little integration, right? Almost nothing to do to get the feeds working, right? If anything, we had some PKI matchups and some things to work there, right? So we're starting to see that more, where it's really about looking at Brandon's team to see how can people get access to the key stores.
Right. Hey, I was just going to circle back to your question, though. I mean, you raised an interesting point, which is, there's an entity within DISA, for example, or the Army or the Air Force that provides us with desktop capabilities. For example, the Microsoft Office. And so I think your question is, whose job is it to mobile enable that? So if I go back to what I've seen our director talk about, where he encourages, or he doesn't encourage, he's mandating that everybody who provides a desktop capability also mobile enable it. I would point back to the folks the entity that provides that capability and say, what's your mobile plan? Are you working with Microsoft, for example, to integrate Purebred so that we can get this on the device? When are you going to present an app to me so that I can vet it and put it into our app store? Right. So yeah.
Yeah. So what you're going to see for our industry partners is increasingly you're going to see in RFPs and RFIs, mobile presence, mobile platform is going to be a requirement, a hard requirement, not optional.
Yeah. And I understand it's a challenging thing right now because we have enterprise license agreements that provide some of the licensing portion, but then we have a separate organization that provides the service, maybe DEPS or DE or something like that. So we all kind of have to work together, but yes, managing the license aspect of it is different when a customer is coming from the Air Force and they have a separate agreement for that as well. So yes. Some challenges, but we're pushing for it for DOS eventually, but I think we still need to do it for the legacy capabilities now.
Right, and Brian, we're being as flexible as we can to provide capability to the customer. So if the customer actually has a capability, an app, right, and they need us to adopt or in case we don't necessarily would use their license, they'd be using their license, right? We're just providing providing the platform for their capability. So we haven't had a challenge in that way that we haven't been able to kind of move on.
To address on your licensing as well, so we also support Apple's VPP program for licensing. So for licensed applications out there, we do support our customers bringing their own VPP. We can load those into our solution and make those apps available to those users as well.
So Brandon, we have vendors here. Many of them already have existing business and lead existing capabilities, right? So from Purebred's perspective, I mean, if you have their ear, what would you tell them now to actually get them started on adopting Purebred?
Yep. So we have information, as I said earlier, freely available on IASC. We have reference implementations for using keys on GitHub. And so if you contact dudpke@mail.mil, that's our general entry point. So any type of questions regarding enablement, whether it is mobile or non-mobile related, all of those requests can be funneled through there, or you can talk to me after.
Okay. And have you had the first customer to actually use the Key Store to create a Android or iOS app?
Yep, so we've had 3 or 4 EMMs that have demonstrated capability. We've got at least 3 or 4 other app ecosystem partners that have been around for quite a while that worked in the smart card reader era that can leverage our keys and work with the existing apps that are already integrated with those ecosystems, as well as just additional third-party apps like some video streaming apps.
All right. So, and as I understand it, for mobile web, there's really nothing special they have to do. The mobile web browsers of the platforms we use today will actually challenge you for PKI authentication.
Yep. On Apple iOS, Safari will work out of the box. On Android, Google Chrome works pretty well as well.
Okay. And Neil, I pose the same question to you. You have the ear of our industry partners. What would you tell them in respect to vetting standards and working with your team and getting an approved app in a MAS, and really what the gentleman asked about, working up front to understand before they even come to you to be vetted, how well is their app written?
Right. So I think I've touched on this a little bit throughout, and I know Brandon has as well. So first, you've got to understand purebred and how to build that into your application, and you've got to understand the protection profiles. If you bring us an app and you've taken that into consideration, I think that it's going to go quick for you without a lot of rework. So talk to us early. We've got Eugene here, again, as my apps lead. He loves to talk, I can tell you from experience. So call him up, talk to him about it, and get with him early and let us work with you as you build your app so that on the back side you're not going back to do rework.
And Mark, I've heard that the app approval process is low energy, right, and slow, right? So can you tell us about what we've been doing to improve that, and really what is fair and reasonable expectations as you present an app to the DoD mobility portfolio office on getting that app approved?
Okay, I know some of this is definitely in Neil's lane as well, but I've been working this for a while. I think for the most part, having a mission need when you submit an app is probably pretty important. Just about any type of app you can imagine comes through our system for approval, and really we prioritize what we can do. We can't do all of them at once, and if there's little or no mission need for the app, no justification, of course, that puts it lower on the list. Like Neil had mentioned, building to standards if you're building an app, but if you actually just have an app that you're running through to get vetted, what we've done to increase the throughput is the scoring, like Neil has already mentioned, and that standardized scoring, that agreement with our authorizing official has made a world of difference as far as if we vet the app and it scores a certain score, we can automatically approve it. If we vet the app and it scores poorly, below a certain score, we can automatically deny that. And if it's in this kind of gray area in the middle, we take that to the AO and for further, justification on that.
Yeah, so. And you guys have actually worked together so that you created a workflow system to actually submit these so we can take the humans out of the loop. So
right, so you can submit them through our user corner. And so, again, that's a CAC-enabled site, so you've got to have your sponsor, if you don't have a CAC card, to go in there to do it. And I did want to harp on something that Mark mentioned, and that's justification. As an example, there was a time when in our app store we had the CNN app. And so at first glance, you look at it and you think, okay, somebody wants CNN. Well, that's less important than something else that's a little bit more mission-focused. But then the sponsor that put that in came back to us and said, hey, look, we're the defense media activity. Our users out in the field need this app on the phone to monitor in real-time news feeds. So we need you to vet this app. Okay, great. But that wasn't really articulated in the request, and we didn't know that. So we were able to move that up and vet it and put it out there. So, if it's, describe the real-world need for the application, and that's what's really going to up your priority and allow you to get it vetted a little quicker.
All right, so about 300 apps in our MAS, and how many of those are actually GOTS apps that were developed?
So apps that actually, so when you say GOTS, what I'm talking about, or what I'm thinking about, are apps that process sensitive information, FOUO, sensitive but unclassified type of information. So out of the 300, I would say, Eugene, tell me if I'm wrong, but probably about 10% process that type of information.
20, 15?
10 to 15%, okay.
15. So, Eugene, can you stand? What are examples of those apps, right? Because that's really what we get at. Who's actually developing apps?
Who's developing apps? So we've got Army folks, we've got Air Force folks. I mean, I don't want to get down to the command level or who's.
There's one big group. NGA.
NGA is doing apps, but that's kind of a different deployment option. So the agreement and reciprocity is still in action there. What we really do have is the whole EFB use case. They are working a government off-the-shelf applications, and we have a pretty good system for getting those deployed out to the users fairly quickly. And we're trying to get that same sort of process in place with the Army because they also have a lot of the government applications that they're trying to get out there.
And Army, right now, being one of our biggest customers, you're actually working an MOA to vet apps to a joint standard, right? So we don't have one stream of people vetting all apps.
Right. So this goes back to the trust to the question earlier today. I don't remember which gentleman it was, but when you come to us having already vetted the application through a certain testing lab, and they are saying that they're working to a certain standard, we are working towards processes to be able to accept that fully. Right now, it definitely accelerates your approval process, but we're trying to get to the point where it's a more automated acceptance, and we can take that and truly accelerate all the way to the approval stage. And so right now we're currently working, like I said, with the Army and with NGA. So those are more mission partner focused. But eventually we want to get into working with the actual testing labs, because there are plenty of testing labs out there that are vetting to the NIAP standard. They execute in different ways, but we want to be able to make sure we set up those processes so that our AO can readily accept those results and make decisions on them.
So I think what you said is there's a lot of different tools out there to vet the apps. We don't really care what tool. We just care about the outputs on the back side of that.
Right. We just want to be sure that what you're saying you're doing matches what we were expecting you are doing. And once we can get that baselined, we can start to set up that process to fully accept the input that you're putting to us.
Thanks, Eugene. So I just got a couple minutes. We just got a couple minutes left. So I just want to highlight some of my team members. I know there's probably a ton of other questions, and I want to highlight some folks. So Greg Yost, would you stand? So Greg Yost is the Mobility Chief Engineer. Yun, stand up. He is our DMUC Program Manager. Frank Cabral, he is Acting Deputy. He's also an Acquisition SME. I have here Leticia Para. She's actually leading our efforts for Classified Tablet. Alex Hornberger, he's actually leading our effort for top secret telephony. I'm over here, right? Becky Brooks, right? Becky Brooks just does everything in the PMO. And she's actually going to be working on our classified program here. We got Cynthia Black, and Cynthia is in charge of mobile security management. Over here, I have my DMCC engineer, Steve No. Please stand. And I see Staff Sergeant Coleman next to him, logistics. Mona, mobility logistics. Candace, mobility contracting and acquisitions. Lily Sheave, mobility contracting and acquisitions. And Stephanie Levine, mobility finance. Is there anybody else on the team? Please stand if I didn't mention you. Oh, Pam. Yeah, you're behind Becky, right? So Pam is mobility finance. So, thanks for having